They live is partially a political statement, it's partially a tract on the world that we live in today. And as a matter of fact, right now, it's even more true than it was then. We are manipulated by a lot of media around us. We are consumed by consumerism. And as you can see in the recent events in this country, they are still among us. They do live.
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. They have created a repressive society, and we are their unwitting accomplices. Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
The truth hurts because the truth is all there is. The truth hurts because the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, 'cause the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, 'cause the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, 'cause the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, 'cause the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, because the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, 'cause the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, because the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth. You can't hide.
Welcome to the Coop Files, the show that explores the social dynamics and psychological forces that shape our world, much like the pecking order in a chicken coop. Why is society structured in rigid hierarchies? Why do we instinctively follow authority? And how is our belief in this structure manipulated to control us? We'll explore the layers of societal conditioning, the psychology behind obedience, the hidden mind control techniques that influence our lives, and the universal moral laws that stand in stark contrast to manufactured authority, connecting the dots between human behavior, authority, and manipulation, and breaking down the structure of control to reveal the truth hidden in plain sight. This is the Coop Files. Welcome. Today's date is Saturday, the 5th of April, 2025. This is episode number 2. Last week, in the first episode, a couple of weeks ago, we questioned the legitimacy of authority. Is it real? Where does it come from? Is it a religion? And I think we pretty much came to the conclusion that it's a religion. It doesn't exist. And it's illegitimate, and any illegitimate system is immoral. It's coercion, violence, and duress. On this show, we are going to explore the idea that we live in a cult. Do we live in a cult? So first of all, just quickly cover the usual introduction. Who is this show for? It's for me, nobody else. Obviously, I'd like people to watch or listen and actually change their mindset if they're stuck in any of the following mindsets. But ultimately, this show is for me. You can't sit around doing nothing when tyranny is ever growing, rights are being stolen, and the death cult marches on. Who is the show not for? The likely people to not want to open their minds. The statists, those who believe 100% in the state. The conformists, those who go along to get along. The authoritarians, those who love authority, those who hate freedom. The atheists, the left-brainers, those that believe in nothing, completely stuck in the material world. The closed-minded, those that aren't open to anything which challenges their beliefs. The emotionally and spiritually immature, children. The thin-skinned, people who are offended at anything. Those opposed to the truth who enjoy their comfort. I don't want to listen to that. It's too uncomfortable. No, that's not nice. I prefer the lie. And the self-loathing. Those with such low self-esteem and self-respect that they can't even accept anything. That means they might have to actually take responsibility. So a few of my favourite pictures there. The thin-skinned and the emotionally and spiritually immature there, right in the middle, crying like a baby. Stickman, the coward who won't believe it because it's too uncomfortable. And it means he might have to actually get off his backside and do something. And then the conformists there, the know it's a mushroom, but they're all too shit scared to say. Because they've got zero self-esteem and self-respect. So, episode number 2, Do We Live in a Cult? Sponsored by Kool-Aid. We're going to explore in this episode what is a cult. We're going to look at cult indoctrination. We're going to look at the signs you are in a cult and similarities with our system. We're going to briefly touch on the Manson CIA cult. And then we're going to look at the purpose of this cult. What's it for? Some cult members there. Definitely looks like a cult, doesn't it? You've got your cult leader. You've got your fancy dress. Order followers on the left there. And then you've got your dogs of war. Men who will kill on an order, like a dog. So, what is a cult? Worship or homage. A particular form or system of worship. Care, labour, cultivation, culture, worship, reverence. So characteristics of a cult: authoritarian control. Cultism hinges on encouraging maximum dependency on the state. People in the cult must feel incapable of living an individual life outside the norms of the group. These beliefs often go hand in hand with a worshipful attitude towards the group's authoritarian leader. Can you spot the authoritarian leader on the screen? And I think most people are dependent on the state. They're dependent on the rules they make, tell them what to do, because they can't make their own decisions. They feel incapable of living an individual life. They don't know how to do anything. They don't know they haven't got any actual skills. They've got no independence. They can't grow food. They can't build anything. They can't look after themselves. Extreme beliefs. Cult members hold to very dogmatic and extreme beliefs. They also are unable to question these belief systems without fear of reprisal or punishment from the leader or other group members very dogmatic and extreme beliefs, unable to question these belief systems without fear of reprisal. I definitely come across people in society who are dogmatic in their approach. They, without fail, will vote, even though it never, ever gets anywhere. Never. There's never any improvements to the system or to people's quality of life. Yet they do it dogmatically. Pretty extreme. They believe in the white coats, regardless of how the health deteriorates. They can't question these things. They can't question whether or not these beliefs are actually worth holding on to. Obviously, fear of punishment. Obviously, if you go against the conformists, you'll be ostracized. Everybody will think you're a tinfoil hat wearer. So definitely extreme beliefs seem to come into it. There's a cult member there on the left with his rainbow flag. He's got some pretty extreme beliefs. Believes that men can become women, and vice versa. He's obviously an order follower as well. By the looks of his uniform, he's willing to kill on order or carry out any order without question for fear of punishment. Definitely sounds like an extreme belief. Definitely sounds like a characteristic of a cult. Isolation from society. As soon as new members join a cult, the adherents work hard to isolate them from family members and friends. This helps fulfill the mind control aspirations of the leader. It also creates a hive mind of sorts between the new person and the other members. A hive mind. Everybody thinks the same. Everybody believes in the system. Everybody follows the system. Everybody believes that this idea of democracy, of a government, is the only system we can have that resembles anything like freedom. Doesn't resemble freedom to me. New members are isolated from family members and friends. I mean, as soon as you're born, you're indoctrinated into the system. Everybody around you, is bought into the system from birth. Register you straight away into the cult. So it's not so much that you need to be isolated in this in this sense, because this is not a small cult. This is a huge, huge belief system. Everybody believes it. Therefore, it's not hard to isolate you once you're born into it. But obviously, if you choose to try and leave the cult, again, reference to the tinfoil hat there, isolation, that's what happens if you try and leave the belief system. If you see it for what it is, that's what happens. You're isolated and ostracized. Veneration of a single individual. Charismatic leaders are often at the center of most cults. Members adopt the belief of the leader and fulfill their requests. The same pattern repeats in almost all other cults. The charismatic or the veneration of a single individual there on the left. She had a huge following. Why anybody admired this complete psychopath who looks at other human beings as her subjects, who basically is on state benefits for her entire life. But people absolutely worshipped her. Worshipped her to the point where on the day of her funeral, you could queue up to go and see her wooden box. And people were queuing. They were literally queuing miles down the street just to go and see this wooden box that she's not in. Do you really think that the dead queen is in that wooden box for all of the public to go and see? This is how extreme some people are in their beliefs. Political cults. Political groups on both the left and the right can morph into cults. Janja Lalich, I hope I've pronounced that right, wrote an entire account of her own experience in such an environment. This is somebody I just stumbled across when I was doing a bit of research into this subject matter, and I just thought it was worth just sharing this. It's quite interesting. She was the daughter of Serbian immigrants. She was born in 1945 and has a PhD in human and organizational systems from Fielding Graduate University in Santa Barbara, California. She is an expert on cults and coercion, charismatic authority, power relations, ideology, and social control. Beginning in the 1970s, she spent around 10 years as part of a radical Marxist-Leninist group, the Democratic Workers' Party in California. She later came to realize that the group was a cult. She recalls that during her time in the group, she stored questions and doubts in the back of her mind, unable to express them. She became a high-ranking member of the group, working long hours with little contact outside the immediate members. She claims that ex-members were harassed and attacked, and that she felt increasingly threatened. Eventually, the group dissolved and she was able to leave. Working long hours with little contact. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Having to survive within the system, having to work long hours. Ex-members being harassed or attacked, vilified, ostracized. Feeling increasingly threatened. Obviously, the system does feel like that. It does feel like a threat. We covered that in the last episode. The duress and coercion. You have to pay a living tax. For example, the council tax, it's called in the UK. It's just a tax on living. You can't live, you're taxed on your life. You can't live without a house. And you can't have a house without paying this tax. It says tax on life. And you're threatened if you either refuse or you can't pay it. Threatened with being put in a cage. So political cults do exist. And that's what they look like. In her work, she describes the main features of a totalistic control group or cult. They espouse an all-encompassing belief system, exhibit excessive devotion to the leader, avoid criticism of the group and its leader, and feel disdain for non-members. Let's just think about that. Totalistic control. We've definitely covered that in the last episode. Belief system, and that exhibits excessive devotion to the leader, or the leaders, or just the group of leaders, the system in itself. excessive devotion, feel disdain for non-members. That is definitely a characteristic of our system. If you don't buy into the system, if you criticize the system, and if you show any sort of rebellion or dissent, then you do feel that other people have disdain. So some more of the basics. No one joins a cult. They are recruited by systematic social influence. Destructive individuals and cults use deception and undue influence to make people dependent and obedient. Would you call him there in the middle a destructive individual? Certainly destroying a lot of people's lives. Deception. Definitely deception goes on. The lies and fake laws, fake rules. The idea that there's democracy, even if you believe in democracy, there's not democracy. 20%, roughly, don't know what the exact figure is, something like 20% voted for this destructive individual. Undue influence to make people dependent and obedient. Influence that comes from everywhere. Not all influence is bad. There is a difference between due and undue influence. Well, exactly. I don't see any due influence coming out of this system. Cult leaders are typically malignant narcissists and want people who will be obedient to them. It's absolute scumbag. Queer Stalin. That's what he wants. People who will be obedient to him. He's an absolute narcissist, racist, authoritarian, communist. Traits of a narcissist: being extremely arrogant and self-centered, disregarding the feelings and needs of other people, manipulating, using or exploiting others for personal gain or pleasure, having an extreme need for power. Well, what else is there when you're a little, feeble little child inside that you have to get pleasure from manipulating and exploiting others, stealing their money? Acts of revenge against those who criticize them. Well, we saw what happened towards the back end of last year. Not necessarily people who, well, it was people who were criticizing his communist regime, but anybody who was going against the grain on social media or in the street. He got revenge on them, didn't he? Locked them up. One person famously or infamously ended up committing the ultimate sacrifice whilst in prison. A granddad, 61-year-old, can't recall his name, just springs to mind. All because of his acts of revenge. Fantasizing about ways to obtain more power or dominance over others. Yeah, I bet you that's what he fantasizes about. Lacking conscience, regret, or remorse for their actions. I mean, full house so far. Being cruel and taking pleasure in the pain of others. High levels of aggression towards other people. Paranoia or mistrust of others. There's Narcissus there on the right. That's where the term narcissist comes from. This is Greek mythology the character Narcissus, he was so obsessed with his own self that he rejected everybody. Nobody was good enough. So in the end, he fell in love with his own reflection. That's him adoring himself. Two peas, same pod. Indoctrination. Destructive individuals and cults use deception and undue influence to make people dependent and obedient, as we've said. A group should not be considered a cult merely because of its unorthodox beliefs. It is typically authoritarian, headed by a person or group of people with their complete control of followers. Cult influence is designed to disrupt a person's authentic identity and replace it with a new identity. So remember that. Disrupt a person's authentic identity and replace it with a new identity which fits the cult, which fits the system. But the old identity, it doesn't go away. It just gets disrupted or buried. And the new identity is obedient, conformist. We saw this in the 2 experiments in the last episode, the Ash conformity experiment and the Milgram experiment. Be obedient, conform, go against your own instincts and your own intuition and even what your own eyes tell you. Influences everywhere. It starts with parenting, relationships, friends, family, community, media, advertising, propaganda, films, social media. Films is a big one. Education, absolute indoctrination. Believe in the system. Follow the rules. Get a job. Pay your tax. Trust authority. That's what kids are educated to do. Trust authority. Obey. Politics, business, religion, psychotherapy. But influence can be enormously positive and helpful as well as detrimental. It is important to recognize the difference between due and undue influence. Due influence involves informed consent. Remember that word, informed consent. That's what due influence is. Your choice and right to question. Listening to your inner voice. Freedom to interact with anyone. Free will and the freedom to leave. However, undue influence is deceptive and manipulative. You are not allowed to question and your inner voice is suppressed. It includes isolation and control, fear and coercion, and enslavement ultimately. So remember, informed consent, your choice. You've got a right to question. You've got a right to listen to your inner voice, and you're free to interact with anyone. And you've got free will, and you've got the freedom to leave. They're all due influence. That's not the system that we live in. Fear and coercion rule our system. And ultimate enslavement. I mean, you're either free or you're a slave. I'm not aware of any in-between. I'm not aware of any grey areas between freedom and slavery. Is it a sliding scale? If it is a sliding scale, well, how much slavery or how much freedom do you need removed to be classed as a slave? What's the cutoff? Undue influence can be subtle. For example, you are given the illusion of informed choice and control, whereas you are being abused by the use of hypnosis and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. NLP. Undue influence can alternatively be extreme and overt, such as kidnapping or torture, but all undue influence is destructive. It is also known as mind control. So the illusion of informed choice and control, the illusion of freedom, democracy, the illusion of voting for people who have your best interests at heart. Even in the so-called system of democracy, 51% of people get their say over the other 49. What happens if those 51% of people are completely immoral and psychopathic? What happens then? Does 51% of people, where do they get the right to tell 49% of people what to do with their lives? So the majority rule, the mob rules. So if I come over to your house and you're in your house by yourself or with your partner, there's two of you. As long as I bring 3 people, I've got the right to steal your money. As long as I write that down on a bit of paper, I call it legislation. I've got the right to do that. NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. We saw a lot of that during the 2020 PSYOP. Cover that. I'm sure we can cover that in a different show. And there you can see there, one of the big influences in the bottom right corner there. Cult psychology. Cult leaders want people who will be obedient to them and their rules. They look for ways to break people. They want people who will work hard and long hours for little or no pay. They want willing slaves. Authoritarian religious cults often use members for labor trafficking. When the mind is controlled, a victim may appear happy and willing to suffer for the profit or benefit of the leader or the group. Authoritarian religious cults often use members for labor trafficking. When the mind is controlled, a victim may appear happy and willing to suffer for the benefit of the group. I definitely see that. Long hours for little or no pay. I mean, how many people go to work long hours and are just scraping enough together to live? I remember when I was brought up, people could actually afford to just have one parent working, have a fairly comfortable life. But at least one of the parents, was actually bringing up the child. Whereas now both parents work long hours, and so again, some people are just scraping by, but they seem happy. These people do seem happy. They seem happy in circumstances which they should just not be happy. That's mind control. For members, happiness comes from good, or perceived good, from good performance within the group, along with elitist thinking, believing they have the truth or the best way of life, but strict obedience is required. They are manipulated by fear and guilt and may be stuck with no way out. Definitely sounds familiar. Happiness comes from good. I'm a good person. I keep my head down. I don't say anything. I do the bare minimum to get along, and I'm happy. I'm a good person. I'm a good person because I don't challenge the system. I don't question authority. I do everything as I'm told. I'm a good person. No, you're not a good person. You're a sick person. You need help. But strict obedience is required. They are manipulated by fear and guilt and may be stuck with no way out. Fear and guilt. That is emotional mind control. Fear and guilt are the two emotions which most people can't deal with. Most people in this system, they can't deal with fear. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And they can't deal with guilt. Just make this go away. I don't like this feeling. Because again, remember, they're emotional children. They haven't matured emotionally or spiritually. Identity change. Undue influence does not erase the person's old identity, but rather creates a new identity to suppress the old one. After different types of manipulation, the creation of a new identity is done step by step by formal indoctrination sessions and informally by members. Videos, games, movies, publications, and social digital media. Behavior modification techniques are employed, such as reward and punishment, thought stopping, and control of environment, isolation, or restriction of access to others. And then the new identity is reinforced and the old identity suppressed. Does that sound familiar? Videos, movies, publications, social media, mainstream media, reward and punishments. Just stay at home. 3 weeks to flatten the curve. We'll let you out for a little bit. Just wear a mask. Just stand 6 feet. Just don't go and see your parents, your friends, your family. Don't go and see your granny. Be good, follow the rules, and we'll let you back out soon. Okay? And then you would have a reward. And then you'd be allowed out for a little bit. Oh, you could see 6 people in the park. How benevolent. But then you'd be punished again. Told to go back inside the house. You're only allowed out on Thursdays to clap. To clap the system. To clap the power on Thursday at 8 o'clock. Applauding eternal power. That's what that ritual was. So, as I say, the new identity is reinforced and the old identity is suppressed. I wonder how many people have come out of that period of time with new identities, because you still see people behaving bizarrely. You still see people petrified of somebody who's got a sniff. There's definitely been new identities changed since then, and complete obedience as well to the white coats. They just completely trust the white coats, even though they're just order followers as well. Lasting effects. Prolonged and intense coercive persuasion can cause identity disturbance, as we've said. Commonly, there are many additional after effects. So let's look at some of these. Extreme identity confusion. Definitely see that going on. People don't even know who they are. They don't even know what the true self is. They couldn't even give you a definition for who they are. They are their job. They are who they vote for. They are whichever flag they wave. Panic and anxiety attacks, depression, definitely going through a mental health epidemic at the minute. Psychosomatic symptoms, headaches, backaches, asthma, skin problems. Don't know so much about that, but certainly the next one, anger, guilt, and shame. We definitely live in an angrier society these days. Guilt and shame, again, we've talked about those two emotions. Most people are psychological children and they can't deal with them. And that's where the anger comes. It only takes somebody just to snap like that on the road, for example. You try and have a conversation with somebody, try and have an open-minded conversation with somebody. They actually just get angry with you. I've experienced that firsthand many times. Decision-making dependency, definitely see that. I know people, many people who are absolutely petrified of making a decision, even what restaurant to go to. Fear and phobias, sleep disorders, nightmares, eating disorders, fear of intimacy and commitment, distrust of self and others. Yep, definitely see that. Distrust of self. They just want to follow their orders, and distrust of others. I've had so many conversations with people where you try and give them some advice, you try and give them an alternative way of thinking, or you try and advise them not to take certain action, or whatever it might be. These are people who you'd expect to trust you as your friends and family, but they don't. They just completely do not take any notice of what you say. Grieving loss of friends and family. Well, maybe when your friends or family leave the cult, then you might grieve them. But, we'll soon find out what this cult is all about, so that does become relevant. Grieving the loss of friends and family. Delusions and paranoia. Delusion is the right word. If you believe that these authoritarian, immoral, complete sociopaths, narcissists, corrupt, morally bankrupt government representatives, if you think that they're actually in it to better your life, you are delusional. Loss of life meaning or purpose. Again, most people, they don't even know how to think about whether or not they've got a meaning in life or purpose. They are just completely wrapped up in the material world. They're obsessed with social media. They're obsessed with television. The only purpose that they think they have in life is to make money and consume. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, there is trauma within the system, isn't there? Right from birth, you're traumatized. No sooner have you entered the world than you're being injected. Then, at such a young age, so the parents can go out. And some parents might do this out of necessity in terms of handing their children over to strangers to care for them while they go to work. Some parents, or maybe a lot of parents, do that out of necessity. But the local childcare or child trauma centre down where I live, I do not see necessity in the 70, 80,000 pound cars that they're dropping off their kids and handing them over to strangers and then getting back in their 70 or 80,000 pound car. That doesn't look like a necessity, does it? Just have your child brought up by strangers. They're already being traumatized from that age, from birth, then from that age. And what are you teaching them? You're teaching them that their identity is not worthy of the parents' love and attention. So where do you think that identity is going to go? This all sounds very familiar. MK Ultra. These are the techniques that they used. MK Ultra began in 1953 and was halted, allegedly, in 1973. MK Ultra used numerous methods to manipulate its subjects' mental state and brain functions, such as the covert administration of high doses of psychoactive drugs, especially LSD, and other chemicals without the subject's consent. Additionally, other methods beyond chemical compounds were used, including electroshocks, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, but verbal abuse and other forms of torture. We've covered hypnosis and NLP, sensory deprivation and isolation. Where have we seen that before? Isolation. Verbal abuse. If you go against the system, if you're a dissident, if you speak out, you are verbally abused. You are called abusive and derogatory terms by the leaders of this cult and the media, the prostitutes. Don't believe for 1 second that these techniques have been honed, that they haven't been honed and fine-tuned and are used every single day, pumped out of the media, the television, social media. More signs you are in a cult and similarities with our system. Bear with me, I don't know why it went back there. Just bear with me. Cults offer you a tight-knit community, a clear moral framework, and a leader who claims to have all the answers. As a result, they create a sense of security and meaning that is dangerously appealing. It definitely does that. It definitely does feel like there's a sense of security to most people. I used to feel like that. And a sense of meaning that you're good, remember? Working, contributing to the system. You're a good person. You've done a good job. You follow the law, the rules. You're obedient. You conform. Dangerously appealing, isn't it? More than that, they don't just recruit followers, they offer an identity, a mission, and the intoxicating belief that you are part of something bigger than yourself. Have I not just described the system? Here's some cult members here. You've got your latest Messiah there, and the MAGA cult. Little cartoon there with the chosen one. You must obey my commands without question. Definitely seems to be what's going on with the MAGA tods across the pond. Government this way. Then you've got a couple of order followers there. Look at them. Look at them. Do they look like they have lost their identity? Complete order followers. No conscience. Don't know the difference between right and wrong. And you've got the group of leaders there at the bottom right. They're all completely delusional. A, that they've got the right to do any of this, and B, that they actually make a difference. And that's the ones who aren't just completely controlled and compromised and blackmailed. And then there you've got Extinction Rebellion. Doomsday cult. I mean, if that doesn't look like a cult, it just beggars belief. More similarities with our system. More signs that you're in a cult-like group. Infallible leader. We've touched on that. Cutting ties. Friends and family who express concerns are labelled as toxic or unbelievers. That's definitely what you're labelled if you want to try and break free of the system. Us and them. The group claims the world is corrupt and only they have the truth. Well, the world is corrupt, but again, within the system, what they mind control you to believe is that without them, the world would turn corrupt, would turn into moral decay, would turn into chaos. Anybody who doesn't believe in the system doesn't have the truth. Extreme loyalty, dissident is punished, and leaving is viewed as a personal failure or betrayal. New identity, we've covered new identities. Secrecy and finances. Members contribute money, but there's no transparency on how it's used. Does that sound familiar? Recruitment pressure. Growth is prioritized and members are expected to bring in new followers as soon as they're born. Double standards. Leaders are exempt from rules that all followers must strictly obey. How many times am I going to use this phrase? Does that sound familiar? Where have we seen that before? Double standards. Fear and control. Leaving the group means facing punishment, exile, or even external damnation. Thought suppression. Doubt is framed as weakness, sin, or a sign of disloyalty. Trust the system. Time domination. Members are kept constantly busy to prevent independent thinking. Think about it. You go to work. They want you at work more and longer. So you haven't got time to think for yourself. You get home, you open a beer, you turn on Netflix, you turn on the football. That's it. That's how they've got people. Exclusive language. The group has its own jargon, making it difficult for outsiders to understand. Well, certainly at the top of the group they have the legal system, legalese. If you want to fight the system, you can't because you don't understand the language that they speak. They speak a completely different language. Might sound like English, but it's not. And obviously then if you find yourself fighting against the system, then you have to hire one of their henchmen and pay him because he understands the language. You can't fight the cult within the cult with a cult member. Personal interference, leadership dictates relationships, friendships, and sometimes even careers. Vilifying ex-members, covered that. Fear of leaving, again, we've covered that. Love bombing, new members are showered with excessive praise, attention, and warmth to quickly build loyalty. I mean, considering that new members are brought in or born into the cult, then they don't need that part doesn't need to happen. But it does sound like what happens when a new baby's born. Or a child is, maybe not a new baby, because everybody should obviously give excessive praise and attention and warmth to a new child, obviously. But think about when a child goes to school and they first start school and they see another cult member. This might be their auntie, their uncle, their grandma, their granddad, or just friends of family, the older generations in particular. When they meet these cult members, what's the only thing they ask the child? This is in my experience, but I'm not just with my own child, but I've seen it with other children as well. What's the only thing they ask the child? Because they can't communicate. They don't know how to communicate with a young person. How's school? And then as long as school is good, going well, and they're conforming and complying and learning to trust authority, and they're doing good at the memory test, which is all school is, then they are showered with excessive praise and attention. And you know, they're given rewards by these other cult members. So that's the love bombing aspect. Stick in, learn your indoctrination, and you'll be given rewards and praise and attention. Guilt and shame, again, we've covered guilt and shame. Made to feel like you're unworthy or indebted to the group. Just a few more signs you're actually in a cult. No outside information, independent reading, media, or external viewpoints are discouraged or forbidden. The media is definitely controlled. There is no free flow of information, and they do use censorship to suppression of external viewpoints. We especially saw that during the 2020 PSYOP. People were given the illusion, again, it's all about illusion, that nobody actually opposed what was going on. People were isolated in their own homes and all saw what was coming out of the television or what was allowed on social media. They didn't understand. They didn't have any wider perspective of all of the different views and opinions from a wide range of professionals and experts. End times thinking. The group warns of an impending crisis or apocalypse, claiming only they can provide safety. If that doesn't ring true, again, I don't know what to say. There's always an impending crisis, isn't there? Whether it's a financial crisis, a health crisis, a terror crisis, any sort of crisis, we can provide safety. We're here to keep you safe. Or an apocalypse. Obviously, apocalypse is really just an unveiling. But in the context of this sentence, it's really talking about the end times. So, climate cult. Obviously, all of our so-called representatives, leaders, they all buy in to the climate cult. And obviously only they can provide safety. Only they can set legislation or taxes or whatever it is to, stop the inevitable end of the world. Delusional. Financial exploitation. Members are pressured to donate large sums, work unpaid, or surrender assets. Donate large sums. You mean pay your taxes? Work unpaid. You mean for the percentage of work that you do, which you effectively do for nothing? Or surrender assets. What, the assets that are stolen from you if you haven't paid your taxes? Or, sorry, if you haven't allowed the fruits of your labour to be stolen, then you have to surrender your assets. Sleep and food control. Some groups limit sleep, food, or personal care to weaken critical thinking. Personal care, well, definitely healthcare, that's controlled. Food is controlled. There is no real food in terms of organic, nutrient-dense, good quality food. Hierarchy and elitism. Members are ranked, and those at the top are given privileges while others struggle to earn favour. Bear with me, just need to plug my battery in. Let's just say that one again. Members are ranked, and those at the top are given privileges while others struggle to earn favour. Sounds like a pecking order, doesn't it? And it's definitely how this system is set up. Demonising doubt. Questioning leadership is framed as a test. Sin or weakness that must be overcome. If you question leadership or just question the idea of a government, the idea of this democracy, the mob rule, if you even question that, then it is seen as some sort of weakness or sin, something that makes you a bit strange. Public confessions. Members are pressured to admit faults or sins in front of the group to increase vulnerability. Well, you're definitely, at the highest level, you're definitely smeared, be it on social media or even in the media, if you were to sort of really stand out in terms of going against the system or breaking the pathetic rules, then you're kind of forced to admit in front, in public, because it's your face will be plastered all over the paper or all over social media or what have you. So there's definitely some of that goes on, but it's just in a slightly different way. Physical punishment. Some cults enforce discipline through fasting, beatings, or public humiliation. How many signs you're in a cult are enough? So I think I read through 26 or 27 signs there. So how many do you need to demonstrate that you're in a cult? There's no magic number of signs you're in a cult, but if a group shows multiple signs, especially those related to control, secrecy, and punishment, it's worth taking a step back and reassessing. Maybe you should take a step back and reassess. A single red flag like strong leadership or tight-knit community isn't necessarily dangerous, but when several signs stack up, particularly isolation, fear tactics, and suppression of independent thought, it suggests a high control environment that could be cult-like. So I'm in absolutely no doubt that we live in a cult. And you can see there the fear tactics, the characters there in the middle who are particularly infamous for pushing fear and isolation and suppression of information or censorship. The cult member there at the bottom right promoting the new normal, enjoying her servitude. And then at the top right there, I mean, if that's not a cult, then, you know, I don't know what a cult looks like. Inside the mind of a cult leader, we touched a little bit on this earlier. Imagine knowing deep down that you are special, destined for something greater than the ordinary masses around you. You see things others don't. You feel their confusion, their fears, their longing for purpose, and you realize you can give them what they crave. At first, it's intoxicating, the way they hang on to your every word, the way they seek your guidance like a lost child needing direction. You feed them your vision, and they believe. That is the inside of the mind of a cult leader. They think they're there for you. They're special. And they need to give you your direction. But belief isn't enough. Doubt is dangerous. One question, one crack in the foundation, and everything could crumble. So, you make it impossible to question you. You build a world where you are the only truth. A savior, a prophet, a leader who cannot be challenged. Those who stay are rewarded with your approval. Are you either with us or you're with the terrorists? Remember that one? Those who hesitate, they are weak, unworthy, enemies of the mission. The more people you control, the more power you feel. Remember Stalin calling normal working class families of the UK the far right. That's the unworthy. That's how he sees us. Anybody who questions this absolute communist is seen as unworthy and enemies. That's democracy for you. And yet, beneath it all, there's a gnawing fear, the fear of irrelevance. If they stop believing, who are you? Who are you, Stalin? Who are you, queer Stalin? If they walk away, do you even exist? So you tighten your grip, you demand more devotion, and eliminate those who threaten your rule. That's the man there right in front of you. You are not just leading a group, you are protecting your own survival. Never has a truer word been said as far as I'm concerned. He's protecting his own survival, his own insecure, tiny, tiny, little, fragile little ego of a pathetic, cowardice man that he is. He's so self-loathing that he needs to feel better about himself by controlling other people. Him and the other cult leader there, see them. What a pathetic, pathetic man. And people follow these people. People put an X in the box and think they're going to vote their way out of tyranny. Right, let's have a 5-minute music break.
On balance, I take another emotional crisis over your soul. I swear, I'm picking up more love as things are staying inside, staying there. And every time I talk, process a bomb dropping overhead. Control your breathing, but you can't control. You're feeling for me. Can't control. You're feeling for me. Control. You're feeling more graphic, nightmare. And I could make that better, but you won't let me. Don't dare. So on balance, I'd say this type of ultra coldness is the worst kind. I'd say I'm picking up my nervous ticks, you're staying inside, staying there. So all this long-wait silence, can we please put it to bed? You can try your heartbreak, but you can't shut it down. Can't shut it down. You control your breathing, control. You're feeling for me. Control. You're feeling for me. Control. You're feeling
Welcome back. Okay, where were we? The Manson CIA cult. I just wanted to touch on this because, given that we've touched on MK Ultra, mind control, and how people are manipulated to follow out actions that they wouldn't normally carry out and be happy in situations that they wouldn't normally be happy in. I just wanted to touch on this interesting book, which I would highly recommend purchasing, called Chaos: Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. So I'll briefly just cover this. Journalist Tom O'Neill offers sensational revelations about the Tate LaBianca murders at the hands of Charles Manson and his so-called family in LA in '69. What began as a feature assignment for Premiere magazine on the 30th anniversary of the crime turned into O'Neill's 20-year obsession with the murders. He questions the official narrative of the case, that Manson hated blacks and wanted to make it look as though the murderers were black revolutionaries, for instance by writing pigs, a popular slang term for cops at the time, on the walls of both houses in the victim's blood. O'Neill interviewed more than 500 witnesses, reporters and cops during his meticulous research. He suggests that drug dealers who knew Manson may have hired him to initiate a vengeful massacre on actor Sharon Tate and the other victims. O'Neill also uncovered the inexplicable leniency shown to Manson and Susan Atkins before the murders by their parole officers when they broke the terms of their parole, yet were never jailed for the offences. In addition, O'Neill posits that Manson might have been one of the subjects of the CIA's LSD hallucinogens experiments. So, very, very briefly, Manson and Susan Atkins were shown leniency. They were constantly in and out of trouble during their parole, and they never ever got pulled up on that and had to go to jail. It's almost like the authorities wanted them out there. So it's if you look at that along with the MK Ultra connections with MK Ultra and LSD, and some of the MK Ultra CIA people were around Manson and around that scene. Again, just read the book to get all of the information. But it looks like, there's a strong suggestion that Manson was some sort of asset, and that they wanted him out there. And there is evidence that supports the idea that the Tate LaBianca murders were not, well, certainly the Sharon Tate murders were not one-offs, random events, because they had been targeted the night before at a different house. But the people who targeted them got disturbed and fled. So it strongly suggests that it wasn't a random attack. So was this a CIA operation? I suppose is the question I'm asking. Were they using? Was he MK Ultra'd, but to use the same techniques on his family to see if they could get them to carry out these, these murders against their will? That's the power of the mind control. That's the power of these mind control techniques. Okay, what's the purpose of the cult? I think we've strongly established now that the system is a cult. Kool-Aid. The reference, obviously, this presentation is sponsored by Kool-Aid. Hello, no monetary gain. There is no monetary gain. Drinking the Kool-Aid is strongly believing in an accepting a deadly, deranged or foolish ideology or concept based only upon the overpowering coaxing of another. The expression is also used to refer to a person who wrongly has faith in a possibly doomed or dangerous idea because of perceived potential high rewards. Trust the system, you'll be rewarded. The phrase typically carries a negative connotation, can also be used ironically or humorously to refer to accepting an idea or changing a preference due to popularity, peer pressure, or persuasion. In recent years, it has evolved further to mean extreme dedication to a cause or purpose, so extreme that one would drink the Kool-Aid and die for the cause. So these examples here, people pushing the Kool-Aid, these extreme dedication. Look at Biden there. Look how dedicated he is to the cause. Some more Kool-Aid advertisers. Some heavy propaganda there on the left. Notice the reverse psychology. That's what that did to people. It completely reversed the idea of if you were doing something for yourself, and that anybody should just be able to make their own decisions. But no, they reversed the psychology, and they made you look like a selfish idiot if you didn't do something. It was absolute manipulation and lies. So you've got high-level cult members here, people at the top of the pecking order, or near the top. Let's get that right. Near the top of the pecking order in the coup. You've got Barack and Michael there, his husband. Pushing the Kool-Aid. I think that's Joe Wiley there in the middle, pushing the Kool-Aid. Dolly Parton. And then you've got some heavy propaganda there at the bottom. And then this absolute deadhead in the middle. The best way to protect ourselves and others. Big Al. How's the Duchess, Big Al? And what did we say before? What did we say about due and undue influence? What was the key? Informed consent. Look at that queue. This is what people were willing to do for the Kool-Aid. Stand in a queue for hours just so they could go to the pub or go on a holiday or whatever. Whatever their reasons were. But there was no informed consent. I would imagine less than 0.5% of people actually made their own mind up about the Kool-Aid. This is straight off the government website. This is the Green Book, I think it's called. And this covers consent. It is a legal and ethical principle that valid consent must be obtained before starting personal care, treatment, or investigations. This reflects the rights of individuals to decide what happens to their own bodies and consent is a fundamental principle of good healthcare and professional practice. Healthcare professionals who do not respect these principles may be liable to legal action or action by their professional body. Did any of these healthcare professionals respect this? No. who's just, there's your can, open it, neck it, off you go. Principles. For consent to be valid, it must be given freely, voluntary, and without coercion. I think we've already just seen the coercion by an appropriate, informed person who has the mental capacity to consent to the administration of the in question. This will be the person themselves. The person themselves is the person who consents, voluntary, without coercion, by an appropriately informed person who has the mental capacity. Information should include details of the process, the benefits and the risks, including rare and common effects, and what to do if they occur. And that information was not given. But people weren't bothered. They were more than happy. The Kool-Aid tasted nice. You know, they were conforming. They were good people. Good people. Where feasible, healthcare professionals seeking consent should find out what matters to individuals so that they can share relevant information about the benefits and risks of it, including the risks of not proceeding. Nobody got this information. What's it called in the cult? It's a death cult. This is what they love. They want death, and they want lots of death. And they don't care about you. And they'll actually get it to do it to yourselves. You've got the dog order followers there who kill on order. Famine. All famine and poverty could be ended in a heartbeat. You've got these ridiculous looking order followers with guns in the middle here. Look what's in the background. You see the cows? These are armed order followers raiding a farm for selling raw milk. That's what they do. You can't be trusted to drink raw milk. That's too dangerous. We're going to take away your raw milk, or we're going to kill you. It's a death cult. Got these three absolute waste of spaces here on the right. Look at the plight of them. So this photograph was taken outside of a school in Texas. I think this was 2023, might be in 2022. I haven't read that much about it. I just know some of the sort of key points. This was a school shooting in Texas where there was a lone gunman running rampage around the school, killing children. And I think he barricaded himself in a classroom. But anyway, the distraught parents and onlookers outside weren't helped when the order followers didn't turn up for 77 minutes. I think I've got this right. 77 minutes, there's that number again. 77. And nobody could understand why. That's obviously terrifying. And then when they got there, they refused, whether it was on orders or otherwise, they refused to intervene. They didn't raid the building for whatever reason, and it got to the point that parents were so distraught that they were going to do it themselves. So what did the order followers do? They pinned them down tied their hands up and arrested those people. Well, they certainly restrained them. Probably did get arrested. You'd need to check that out for yourself. But that is the death cult at work for you. Bottom left here, obviously, the Kool-Aid that we've spoken about, where people willingly inject themselves with stuff that they have absolutely no idea what's in it. And then last but certainly not least, the war, the killing and maiming of innocent children, and just war in general, the death cult. Breaking free, how to leave a cult. Leaving a cult isn't just about walking away, it's about undoing psychological conditioning, rebuilding your identity, and regaining control over your thoughts and decisions. Acknowledge the doubt. If you're questioning the group, trust that instinct. Cults frame doubt as betrayal, but in reality, it's a sign of independent thinking returning. Keep it going. Seek outside perspectives. Even if it feels uncomfortable, don't let that uncomfort rule your thoughts. It won't be comfortable learning the truth. Cults create an us v them mentality to make outside information seem dangerous. Break the cycle by talking to trusted friends or family, even if you haven't spoken in a while. That's if you've got any friends or family who aren't in the cult. Explore neutral sources like documentaries, survivor stories, and expert analysis. Plenty of those about that demonstrate how evil this system is. Ask yourself, if this group is truly good for me, why am I afraid of hearing other opinions? That is an excellent question. Reconnect with the real world, engage in activities unrelated to the group's ideology, such as music, sports, or reading. Limit exposure to TV, materials, or social media pages, even temporarily. It's good advice. Create an exit strategy. Leaving can feel overwhelming, especially if you fear retaliation or losing your community. Take gradual steps. Yeah, you will lose your community. You will lose touch with people. And even if you hang on to some friends and family, they will think you're mad. That's the cult mentality. Expect emotional withdrawal, but no, it won't last. Cults use emotional hooks like guilt, fear, and love bombing to keep members from leaving. After you go, you may feel guilt, fear, and loneliness in the shape of, what if I'm betraying my purpose? What if the group was right and I fail without them? Who am I without this identity? These feelings will pass as you regain critical thinking and emotional independence. Rebuild your identity. You are more than the cult's version of you. If you manage to leave, you're not just escaping, it's about rediscovering who you are outside of it. And that is definitely something I can speak to. Reclaim the true self. Remember the true self. I think I mentioned it before. Most people don't even know what the true self is or how to even explore and look for it. Set small personal goals to regain confidence. Even tiny wins like making an independent decision or exploring a new hobby reinforce your ability to think and act for yourself. Surround yourself with healthy relationships, people who aren't in the cult. Not by meeting new cult members, but by connecting with those who genuinely support your growth and well-being. I think of so many ex-friends or cult members that I no longer associate with. I can think of so many of those who, now that I look back, they had no interest or support for my growth and my well-being. It's all about the group. It's all about just the materialism and banter and socializing and laddish behavior, and there is no actual authenticity whatsoever in that. Many people have walked this path before and they've come out stronger, wiser, and freer. How to spot a cult member. So this is everybody will probably be familiar with this scene, but this whole presentation just reminded me of this particular scene. So I'm just gonna go through it and talk about it.
The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? I was... Look again.
I'm going to go through that again and just pause it so I can speak to it in real time.
The Matrix is a system, Neo.
So firstly, it's a system.
That system is our enemy.
And it's your enemy. I think we've shown that.
When you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds
Businessmen, lawyers, teachers, carpenters,
of the people we are trying to save.
the very minds of the people we're trying to save.
But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
Notice who was the enemy there. Why did they choose that shot there, the wide shot of the order follower? That's the enemy. Well, they're all the enemy, but
You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so...
many of them aren't ready to be unplugged from the system because they are utterly obedient and reliant upon the system. They are just not ready. They don't want to be ready. Well, they don't want to be unplugged because it would be too traumatic. There's too much trauma suppressed deep down in that real self-identity that's been suppressed, that you can't just bring that instantly to the surface.
hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it.
They are hopelessly dependent on it, that they will fight to protect it. They like the system, wherever they are in the hierarchy of the coup, of the pecking order. They like it there, especially people near the top. People who've done, on the surface of it, quite well out of the system. Materialistic people. They love the system.
Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? I was... Look again.
So the general gist of that scene is everybody is in the system, everybody is in the cult, and everybody is potentially an enemy. Even the woman in the red dress. Even the person that you bump into at the local general store, or somebody that you might exchange a few pleasantries with in the local bar. They're all potential agents. That's how you spot a cult member. Assume they're a cult member until you are absolutely satisfied that they are not. Very quickly, compromised cult members. On the left, Tim Fortescue was first elected to Parliament in the 66 general election. He was re-elected to the 1970 general election, and having been appointed by Ted Heath as an assistant whip under Francis Pym, he served as a senior whip. That's Ted Heath on the right there. A prolific, well, he's prolifically accused paedophile and Satanist. So, compromised cult members. Let's see what Tim has got to say about these cult members and how they are manipulated to follow out their orders.
Anyone with any sense who was in trouble would come to the whips and tell them the truth. They'll say, "Now, I'm in a jam. Can you help?" It might be debt. It might be scandal involving small boys, or any kind of scandal which a member seemed likely to be mixed up in. They'd come and ask if we could help. And if we could, we did. And we would do everything we can, because we would store up brownie points. That sounds a pretty nasty reason, but it's one of the reasons. Is if we can get a chap out of trouble, then he'll do as we ask forevermore.
So there you have it. Young boys. Gotten into trouble with young boys. These members would come to this sicko and he'd get them out of trouble, but he'd store their name in a little book. Store up brownie points that could be used later. You'll do your bidding forevermore. That's how they operate. And I've got no reason to think that it's changed. It was rife in the 70s and 80s, proven into the 90s. And I don't think for 1 second that it's changed. Just need to look at queer Stalin. Why has he not come out of the closet? What's he got to hide? In this day and age, it doesn't matter, queer. Just come out the closet. You don't need to hide and pretend anymore. It's all right. We won't ridicule you. So the 4 tenets of the cult. So just so you know exactly how you shouldn't behave, these are the tenets of the cult. These are boiled down by if you check out the website whatonearthishappening.com, and a researcher called Mark Passio who identified that the system or the mindset that he calls simply satanic, that mindset is the cult that we live in today. He is a whistleblower who used to be involved with the Church of Satan, which, don't trigger yourself, it's not about some horned devil. We'll explore exactly what the Church of Satan is in later episodes, I'm sure. But these are the 4 tenets of what he describes the current human condition. And in these first 2 episodes, I think I've come to the conclusion that this is absolutely true. Even of my own, just looking at the idea of authority and the idea of this system that we live in and what it stands for. This is absolutely 100% accurate. Self-preservation above all else, following orders to protect your own pay packet. Look after your own what's good for you. It doesn't matter how immoral it is, what the orders that you're following out, or how your behaviors affect other people. It doesn't matter as long as you preserve yourself. It doesn't matter if you conform, as long as you feel better for it. It doesn't matter if you can't make your own decisions. It doesn't matter as long as you're all right. Moral relativism. I choose what's right or wrong. There's no objective morality. It's subjective. Just make it up as you go along. What's right today is wrong tomorrow, and vice versa. What absolute nonsense. We covered that in the first episode. With the authority, they just make it up as they go along. Social Darwinism. The strong should see their wealth and power increase. That's how society is structured in terms of the wealthy and the powerful. They're all interbred, they're all connected. It's all the same genes. They think that those genes should be the ones with the wealth and the power. Just us peasants, we never get anywhere. Eugenics, again, we covered that. We choose who lives and who dies. They think that God. We definitely live in a society or a system where we think we can just choose to sacrifice unborn babies, or to euthanize old people, or soon we'll be euthanizing disabled people and mentally ill people. That's eugenics. Population control, eugenics. It's an atheist, selfish death cult. That's my working definition for it. You can only follow these tenets if you're an atheist, and if you're selfish, and if you quite frankly don't care about anybody or anything as long as you're okay. So I think that concludes today's episode. Let's hope that a few people can actually open their mind, have a look at their own beliefs, their own behaviours, and realise, once they step back and actually think about it, we are in a cult. Thank you. Thanks for listening. I'm a bit peckish, so I'll see you later.
It's everywhere I look, from Las Vegas to right here, under your dresser, right by your ear. It's creeping in sweetly, it's definitely here. There's nothing more deadly than slow growing fear. Life was full and fruitful and you could take a real bite, the juice pouring well over your skin's delight. But the shadow it grows and takes the depth away, leaving broken down pieces to this priceless ballet. The shallower it grows, the shallower it grows, the fainter we go into the fade out line. The shallower it grows, the shallower it grows, the fainter we go into the fade out line. Did we build all those bridges to watch them thin down to dust, or blow them voluntarily out of constant trust? The clock is ticking its last couple of talks, and there won't be a party with weather in front. The shallower it grows, the shallower it grows, the fainter we go into the fade out line. The shallower it grows, the shallower it grows, the fainter we go into the fade out line. Heading deep down, we're sliding without noticing our own decline. Heading deep down, we're hanging on to sweet nothings left behind. Deeper down, we're all going down. Down, deeper down, yeah. We are all plunging straight towards our own decline. Without noticing, we slide down, deeper down. The shadow grows without ever slowing down. We are heading straight into the fade out line. The shallower it grows, the shallower it grows, the fainter we go into the fade out line. The shallower